Good evening and welcome from Chicago. Perhaps no one in the Democratic Party can generate more excitement than the man who made history as the first African-American president. And that is why Barack Obama, elected 16 years ago, will deliver a much-anticipated address here on day 2 of this Democratic convention, offering a strong endorsement of Vice President Kamala Harris, who, if successful, will be the first woman to become president. Obama's speech comes a day after President Biden, his former vice president, addressed this convention with a passionate yet bittersweet passing of the torch to Harris, recognizing both history's calling and the urgency of the moment. It's where we begin tonight with Chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander. Peter, a lot of anticipation here in former President Obama's hometown.
Yeah, Lester, that is exactly right. Right now, we are here in the middle of the Illinois delegation for President Obama. This really is a homecoming of sorts. Democrats hoping that his star power helps motivate their voters to come out in force for Kamala Harris. Tonight, the Democrats' attention turns to two of the party's biggest names, former President Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama. Mr. Obama's speech coming 20 years after the DNC address that propelled him to stardom overnight. Sources tell NBC News he'll detail the task ahead for Democrats in the next 77 days and bring into focus the values at stake in this election. The former commander-in-chief in the spotlight after a night that belonged to the current one. Before leaving Chicago, President Biden reflected on the nearly 5-minute standing ovation he received.
Well, it was. I mean, the reception was pretty overwhelming.
The president tearing up after he was introduced by his daughter and heaping praise on Vice President Harris.
Selecting Kamala was the very first decision I made when I became our nominee. And it was the best decision I made my whole career.
Insisting he had no ill will after being pressured to drop out of the race.
And all this talk about how I'm angry at all those people who said I should step down. That's not true.
President Biden defending his record and crediting Harris for playing a critical role carrying it out.
We've had one of the most extraordinary 4 years of progress ever, period. When I say we, I mean Kamala and me.
NBC News tonight getting a first look at the video introducing Doug Emhoff and Harris's blended family.
Kamala became Mamala. She took over Sunday night dinners and taught Doug how to actually cook.
The vice president now the second woman to top a major party ticket and the second to face Donald Trump. The first, Hillary Clinton, also speaking last night.
He is lying about Kamala's record. He's mocking her name and her laugh. Sounds familiar. But we have him on the run now.
But in a battleground blitz again today.
They tried to pretend that everything was great, the crime was great, the border was great.
Both former President Trump and J.D. Vance accused Harris of trying to run away from her record.
She stands there and says on day one, she's going to tackle the housing affordability crisis in our country. You've been the vice president for 3.5 years. What the hell have you been doing for all that time?
And tonight, sources tell NBC News the Harris campaign and its allies are riding a wave of new energy, having raised nearly $500 million since Joe Biden handed over the reins to Kamala Harris. Lester?
Peter, thanks. Meantime, Vice President Harris is holding a rally tonight about an hour away in Wisconsin. Yamiche Alcindor in Milwaukee. Yamiche, it's an unusual choice to hold an event like this during her own convention.
Well, Lester, Harris campaign sources tell me that the vice president and Governor Walz wanted to underscore that they're focused on directly engaging with voters in battleground states, even during the week of the DNC. So they're coming to this critical state, her third visit here in a month. Now, this campaign rally is in the same arena where former President Trump and Republicans held the RNC. She is expected to attack former President Trump, as well as lay out her vision for America. Meanwhile, a source familiar with the speech that Vice President Harris is going to be delivering on Thursday at the DNC tells me the speech is largely done and that the VP and her team are making tweaks. Lester?
Yamiche, thank you. All right, let me bring in Hallie Jackson. Hallie, obviously this is a critical time for the Harris campaign, but the Trump folks are watching very carefully as well.
They sure are. And what is the busiest week of his campaign so far? He's on a battleground blitz in places like Michigan. We're not far from that delegation, a key state for both Republicans and Democrats, of course. The Trump campaign is basically looking, Lester, to try to get on offense here, especially after some of the sharp attacks we heard on night one here at the DNC. You've got his running mate, for example, going after Vice President Harris for not doing formal interviews since she became the nominee. But you've also got allies, those in Mr. Trump's orbit, who are deeply frustrated that he's leveling personal attacks against Vice President Harris and not focusing on policy.
And another split-screen moment we should be looking for.
That's right. That's because the former president tomorrow will hold his first outdoor campaign event since that assassination attempt against him in Butler, Pennsylvania. This one will be in North Carolina, and multiple campaign sources tell NBC News there will be stepped-up Secret Service security there, including more bulletproof glass.
Hallie Jackson, thanks much. And join us tonight on News Now for continuing coverage of the Democratic Convention. And at 10 Eastern on the NBC network, we'll be live with Barack and Michelle Obama as they headline their hometown here in Chicago. Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.